Welcome aboard, folks. I'm Stephen Malkowich, your captain on this adventure called Ship of Fools. I'm a fool. Lucky for you, I'm not sailing solo. Join me and a boatload of people, all just trying to make sense of this crazy world. It's a fabulous mess, and you're invited. This is, I'd like to welcome you, Leah.
Yay.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us in this episode, Ship of Fools, where wit meets wisdom. We're in our new studio here. As those that are the very few that are finding us interesting, there'll be more. And after this, there certainly will be more, because this is the first rock star. I told you, you're the first rock star that I've ever met.
Am I the first woman on your show, or no?
Yes.
Because
no.
I was scrolling through your old episodes,
we had Natasha from the electric mode. They make electric outboard motors, which is bizarre, but they're like the Tesla, and they're out of Vancouver here.
Of outboard motors.
Yeah, it's called ACL.
Well, I compete?
So you can. I know. How can you compete? How could you compete? How could you possibly compete? Thank you so much, Lee. I know. Well, it's, you know what. It's I'm curious, and we had that discussion about curiosity, and I'm very honored and pleased that you decided to join us today, and I wanted, and what's even I said before, and I wanted to start off with, you're a Canadian icon as it comes to music. You are.
Okay.
No, you can, no matter what you say. Okay. And one of the things that we don't do real well here in Canada is celebrate our own. We really don't. And I'm very interested. I'd like to start on how Lee Aaron made it from Belleville. That's where you came from, right?
I was born there.
And the journey to Vancouver.
Oh my God!
Do
you have a couple hours?
Well, we're going to talk here for
yeah.
We've got time here. We've got time. We have a lot of time, because there's a lot of things that you did that were groundbreaking.
Okay.
So I mean that, like, a female in that genre of music, that was a big deal. That was. And I think it still is a big deal to a certain extent. Maybe not.
There's still really, it's way, way better than it used to be. But when I started I literally started touring in 1980. The summer of 1980, I met my very first manager. I was 17 years old. I turned 18, and he put us out on the road. And there was literally no women doing more hard-edged rock. There just wasn't.
So
and I was one of a handful of women in the 80s that were doing it.
With around a bunch of men.
Oh, yeah.
It's all men.
Yep. I've written a lot about that I'm writing a book right now, my memoirs. Okay. I don't know if it's an autobiography or memoirs. It's kind of a combo of both, even though it does follow somewhat of a chronological timeline.
Okay, so let's start right there.
Sure.
You're 17 years old. You're going out on the road. And like, what do your parents say?
They were freaked out at first, because I was actually a little smarty pants in school. I got scholarships and was on the honor roll. And their thing was, you really need to be going to post-secondary. And that's our vision for you. And I kind of had every intention a couple of years prior to go to post-secondary, but when I got to the end of grade 12, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Like, okay, I play in the concert band and the jazz band. I played saxophone, E-flat alto sax. And my future in music kind of looked like an orchestra seat, right? That's what that kind of looks like if you're going to continue with music, which really didn't appeal to me. I didn't find that there was anything creative about being in a concert band. I mean, it was fun when everything gelled and the music all came together, but with everyone But I mean, it's high school.
Mhm.
You've seen high school concert bands,
yeah.
There was a guy that sang behind me in my class named Merlin Williams, and he couldn't tune his instrument, and it made me insane, because I had.
So were you singing in high school?
I was singing. I was in a band. So this is the thing.
So you were in the orchestra. You were in the
I was and I was involved in musical theater.
Okay.
I was in all the musical theater productions, but I was also had joined a band at 15, a local rock band. And so I guess at that point we met this gentleman who was a fairly notable Toronto manager. And we knew of a couple other bands he managed. And we were like, this is our big chance to go on the road and become rock stars. So I told my parents, let me give it a year or two. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back and do post-secondary. I'd actually enrolled at Humber for a bachelor's degree in interior design because if I wasn't going to sing, I thought I'd do something creative like interior design or something like make spaces beautiful. I'm still a bit of a, very fussy about my house, but and then we ended up going on the road. So my parents kind of flipped a switch after they realized this was my passion. It was my dream. And they were like, okay, we need to support you. In fact, my dad, who's very creative with his hands, built this amazing sign, Lee Aaron sign. I designed the logo in high school because that's what you do when you're in high school. You design band logos in math class, right? And I designed this logo for Lee Aaron, and it was like about double the size of this table, and it was like a box. And he carved out the Lee Aaron with a jigsaw. And there were all these 100-watt light bulbs in the back, and you plugged it in, and it was like Lee Aaron.
So you took that on the road with you?
Yeah, we did. In fact, it was quite roadworthy, that sign, believe it or not. It went everywhere with us when we were young. And and you could suspend it from the truss with a couple of chains, and Well,
so you finish high school, you're in the van.
Yep.
And you're just hiking across wherever you go. Where was your first paying gig?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to ruin my book because I told this story just recently.
Okay.
You're going to laugh your head off when I tell you. Okay. In Southern Ontario, there's a resort town called Turkey Point.
Turkey Point.
So I played my very first.
Turkey Point.
My very first gig was at a place called Turkey Point. And then we proceeded to play a variety of other turkey-like destinations all across the
general vicinity of Turkey Point.
South toward Niagara Falls.
Okay.
Near the water.
Like Niagara on the Lake area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even know it existed till I played there. I haven't thought about it much till I wrote about it recently.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So Turkey Point.
Yeah.
So that's... And so you've got... And just explain, because I'm going to ask some stupid questions.
That's okay.
Okay. How do you... you have to have an agent, right? Is that correct? You have to have somebody that's booking. Are you guys handling all your... How do you go about doing that?
Well, there was a circuit that existed years ago in the early 80s that didn't exist by the late 80s, of really, really dumpy hotels.
Okay.
That had a bar in all these little towns like Wallaceburg and Kapuskasing and Bracebridge. And I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
Timmins, Ontario,
tiny town, Ontario.
Thunder Bay.
Thunder Bay.
Just Nipigon. There were all these, usually they had exotic dancers during the day, and then they'd have a band at night.
Yeah.
And it was a 6-night-a-week engagement, Monday through Saturday night. And all the blue-collar local workers would come. That would be like the local watering hole. And, you might play to 20 people on Monday. But by Saturday, boy, if your band was good and you played songs they like, it was packed to the rafters. It was a circuit. It was a circuit. And believe me, many, many Canadian bands like Kim Mitchell, Coney Hatch, Anvil, Godot.
Well,
I'm just trying to think of
I come from Winnipeg.
Triumph,
So,
like all these bands, we all cut our teeth on that circuit.
I saw Blue Rodeo for the first time at a strip club. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw Tragically Hip
Was
for the first time at a strip club.
Yep.
That's pretty much, and that was in Winnipeg. So, and but I never thought about that. You know, you going to see, and you're right. It would be like because if you were good by Friday, Saturday, the word would get out.
The difficult part for me as a woman,
oh man,
the challenging thing for me,
I could,
not only were the 80s an extremely sexist decade, right? And just in terms of the whole culture, but some of these patrons they just spent their government checks there. I think they were there from when it opened at 11 till 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I would walk on stage at 7:30, ready to do my 3 sets.
I can only imagine.
A girl with clothes on, and I would be heckled like they would be confused. They were drunk and they're like, "Why is she not taking her clothes off?" It was hard. It was a very, very
see, that's something that I wouldn't even think
ferocious kind of environment for a young girl.
I couldn't even imagine that. I couldn't even imagine that. And you're like 19 years old.
18, 19. I had a chaperone for the my first year on the road. The keyboard player in my very first high school band was older. He was 20 or 21 21, I think, at that time. And so my first manager I was like, how can I go play bars? I'm not even drinking age.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, everything was a little bit loosey-goosey in 1980, 81. He's like, you need a chaperone. And so my keyboard player did this agreement where he agreed to be my chaperone. And the truth is, none of the bar owners cared.
No.
Nobody cared as long as people were there and they were drinking. And they were happy. And
So you start touring, and you're doing that circuit, that grimy circuit, I don't know what you'd call it, what term you were using before, whatever.
Crummy
hotel circuit. The crummy hotel circuit.
Yeah.
And you're going and now you're getting. When did you is Ontario and then the rest of Canada? When did you start picking up steam and make your way across Canada?
So probably we ended up doing some cross-Canada touring after my first album. I did my first album when I was 19.
Okay.
I was a kid. I didn't really know what I was doing. My first manager put together some more notable artists. That's why my first album was called The Lee Aaron Project, because I wrote a couple songs with Rick Santers. Do you remember the Santers band? They're a little bit Ontario-centric, so you may not remember them. Santers, members of Moxie.
That's familiar.
Earl Johnson and Bus Sherman, the singer. These were quite well-known Toronto bands.
Yeah.
Rick Emmett from Triumph.
Yeah.
Was involved in one of my producing and also singing background vocals on a song I had written with a guy named Dave Applin, who was guitar player for a MCA band called Rabbit with a W. Don't even ask it. Dumb name.
Okay.
They had Chuck, whatever his name was, from MCA, who did the Bugs Bunny cartoons, and it was a marketing idea of MCA's that was probably not one of the good ones, but anyway, and I'd written, so I wrote, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 songs on my very first album. Frank Soda wrote a song for me. Rick Sanders wrote a song for me. I covered a Moxie tune called Texas Outlaw that never made it onto a Moxie record. And so he just tried to put it together around me because he saw that I had vocal talent, but not very, very little experience with songwriting or being in the industry. I wanted to write songs, and I had been writing songs with my high school band, but they were pretty immature at that point. We weren't very developed as writers. Yeah. But so then my first album comes out, and on Freedom Records in Canada, it was this independent label, and that opened up the door for me to be able to go. It's like I had a record out finally, and I could actually, but unfortunately, all of these places were pretty much the same in every province. Like I was playing places like the Highlander Inn in Edmonton, or, you know, they were all.
Did you ever play the Royal Albert in Winnipeg?
Royal Albert. Is it a hotel or?
Yeah, it was his hotel.
Okay, just
it was the Royal Albert. It was a.
Probably. I don't know. I played the place called the Osborne Village, the zoo.
I know that place.
The zoo.
I used to live right across from the zoo.
That was fair.
I used to live right across the street from the zoo.
A little rough.
It was a zoo.
A little rough around the edges there.
Yeah, that was a zoo.
Yeah, but
that was a zoo.
So,
I remember that.
This circuit, though, like literally, the first month the band was on the road, we all got like scabies from some dirty sheets in a hotel because they weren't washing the bedding. So it was just like baptism by fire. Like, some of these places it was winter and there were broken windows and I'm taping cardboard on my windows with gaffer tape it was nasty. It was nasty pants, like the whole circuit. It was blah. Yeah. Anyway.
So, okay. So you start doing this. You're doing this. Yeah. And you're not discouraged. Obviously, you keep on going. Like, was there ever a time though where you went, what am I doing?
Well,
because what you're describing, you could say it would be exciting, okay, at the very least. But at the same time, you're a woman. So
it's exciting initially,
and
then a year into it, I was kind of going, "What is okay? Is this a means to an end?" And so the whole idea was always for me to be able to make my next record, right? And so, yeah, by the end of that, we ended up, I was on the road and I'm like, my thing was to get musical credibility, because a lot of the journalists that I talked to, they will go, well, this little girl and she can sing, but, this album's kind of been put together for her, around her. Couple things happened. My manager, who, I didn't love all his ideas, but some of them were quite brilliant. And he sent a bunch of promo pictures and my first album to a journalist in England named Paul Suter, who wrote for one of Britain's biggest rock magazines called Kerrang.
Okay.
It's distributed around the world. He loved it. He loved my voice. He loved the album. He squeezed a feature into Kerrang, and suddenly there was this buzz in England about me. And we ended up going to the UK. We didn't have any money. We flew over there, just me and my manager. We used a pickup van from Manchester, and I showcased at the Marquee Club. And
so you just fly over there, with no band.
When you're 20, you're 19, you think you're invincible, right? You just do anything. So, yeah. And so that created quite a bit of a groundswell of European interest about me. And by the time we got back, we were invited to come back for Reading Festival. Like, this is like a festival for 60,000 people. So we come back home. We're
talking what, 1983?
Yeah. And I started writing Metal Queen, the Metal Queen album with my guitarist. I said to my guitarist, George, who was back, it's a long story. It's in my book.
Go.
He kind of left, my first manager kind of fired everybody. And then 2 years later, my high school guitarist ended up back in the band. He was a really gifted guy, like really gifted player. And he'd grown up a lot, because these guys were behaving very badly when I first went on the road.
Imagine.
We were just a bunch of high school kids untethered from our parents for the first time. What do you expect, right?
Young boys.
Yeah. And so I said to my guitarist, I need to do this next record. I need to write it myself. I can't, without the help of all these well-known people, to get musical credibility. And I did. I wrote it, the whole next record with him. And then there was this England buzz going on, and then we were ready to record again.
So when you went over to England, just you and your manager, you pick up a band and you toured? Like, when you went over there?
No,
Or
I
you
just did the one showcase.
you did the one showcase, and then you come back.
Yep.
And then you put a band together, or you use.
So I had a band at this point.
But okay.
Because when my first album came out, we had a big showcase at the Adelaide Street Theatre in Toronto.
Okay.
And my manager, honestly, it's a bit of a blur. The first 3-4 years of my career, I had a rotating cast of players come in and out of my band because a couple of things. I didn't have much money to pay them. So I wasn't going to get the A-list guys because I was still doing most of these dumpy bars, right? I didn't have the money to pay them.
And they're all guys.
And they're all guys and young guys. When you get these B and the C-list players, they're unpredictable, they're unreliable, they don't always behave like professionals. They jump ship to go to the next band that might pay them a little bit more, or we're going to LA and we're making an album in LA, and then they're off, and so I had a rotating cast of people in my band when I was young.
So you come back.
Yeah.
And we're talking, we can get into, we're in the mid 80s. Okay. And you're by, let's say 1986, 87. Okay. When did you know that this was it, that this was what you were going to be able to earn a living doing this? Maybe still.
Well, you know what? I actually was earning a living from the very beginning.
Okay.
I mean, it was at the poverty line, but I was able to pay for rent.
Yeah.
In a little Toronto apartment with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Moved in with me after my first boyfriend. That didn't work out. So I felt like it was always it's funny because some people, occasionally I'll have a journalist that goes, yeah, and then you released Metal Queen, and then you were the stratospheric success. And it's like, yeah, it wasn't like that at all. I didn't actually start making decent money until I was well into my 5th, 6th album. And by then I had an entourage, a management office, a staff of people that I was paying. So I still wasn't making amazing money, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
so how long to that point that you're talking about, where you had that, you had the from when you started to that point, how many years would you say? From when you started?
A decade.
A decade. So you're into it for a decade, and you're going, okay.
Yeah.
Now are you saying to yourself then, I'm not saying money wise or whatever that I've got something here, or were you saying that right from the very beginning that I'm going to be able to, in the entertainment business, and I'm not in the entertainment business. I'm in the news business. I'm in the news business. When you say to yourself as an artist, as an entertainer, that I guess you can. I'm answering my own question here, I think.
Okay, it's okay.
No, I'm going to say,
ahead.
when you say, "Oh, I made it," you're always you can never say that. Am I wrong? That you just you're always trying to get better, or
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Where you can't get comfortable. Because there's got to be something burning all the time to get better and better and better and better and better and better, until you get to a point where you say, well, this is as good as it's going to get.
I've never felt that
No?
way. No,
Okay.
I've never ever gone, this is as good as it's going to get.
Because you've crossed genres in music too, right? You've done, jazz, blues.
Well, I started out in school. My whole schooling, when I was in choirs and musical theater in school, my whole schooling was singing all those old Tin Pan Alley songs and a lot of Rodgers and Hart and musical theater / a lot of the stuff was very, jazzy, jazzy and bluesy in that genre. And so that's kind of where I came from. So when I did a little bit of a career diversion in the 90s and started singing and recording that, people thought, wow, she's abdicated the hard rock throne. And, this is just so left field. And it's like, actually, it's not. It's kind of like, going back to, well, number one, I've always described it as going back to the roots of rock and roll, because even if you look at, you look at a band like Zeppelin, they stole from all those Chuck Berry and Howlin' Wolf and all those old blues guys. And my favorite rock bands, like a Zeppelin, like The Who, they all stole from those old blues guys. So going and doing an album that's jazz and blues is not taking a left turn. It's actually kind of going back to the roots of rock, if that makes
sense. Interestingly enough, to tie that in, George Thorogood. Okay. There's an argument, and like, who doesn't love George Thorogood? But no original material. That, like, everything that he's recorded, every song he does is an old blues tune. Every song, really. And I never thought of that until just actually the other day, because I've got an eclectic interest in every genre of music I listen to, and I never thought of it, and I was going, and because it was a debate on why George Thorogood wasn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I don't know why the hell. I was just probably late at night.
And that's probably because he's not a writer.
That's right. He's not a writer.
Yeah,
he's not a writer.
Hit song.
That's right. And yeah. So your material, everything. You're a writer.
Yeah.
You're a writer. And did that come, like, to write songs? Like, you gotta, like, that's a special talent. No.
Well, I didn't think about it a whole heck of a lot when I was young. It was just sort of like, you're young, you're impulsive. It's like, oh, that sounds like a good melody. Let's just do it. And so, like, a couple of my, my initial first couple albums were written pretty fast. Like Metal Queen was written in a few weeks. We were on the road, and I wrote most of it with my high school guitar player.
Explain that process. Just as brief, like, give us the Reader's Digest version of writing. Like, you said, you wrote the album in 2 weeks. Well,
like, we would just go down to the club in the day if they let us in, and he'd goof around with some riffs, and I'd walk up to the mic and I'd sing some melodies, and I had a little book of lyrics, and I'd go, oh, this works and this fits, and it just sort of, by that point we were. You're always influenced in listening to other artists. One of my biggest influences, I always say I became a female rocker, was the band Heart. They were huge Zeppelin fans, but I loved what they did. To me, Ann and Nancy Wilson were the epitome of classy, cool female rockers. They didn't trade on their sexuality. They played instruments. They wrote their own songs, So I was very influenced by that. And of course, the year we recorded Metal Queen, Def Leppard Pyromaniac got released, and that changed the landscape of hard rock. It brought it into the mainstream, right? So we were all trying to write melodic songs with big guitars, and I don't know, we just wrote Metal Queen really quick. That's all I can say. And as I've gotten, the reason I was saying to you earlier, the reason I say, you never just sort of put a cap on it and go, that's it, I'm done. That's as good as it's going to get. Every album I've ever done, I always, you have to close a chapter. And I realized you have to close the chapter and go, okay, it encapsulates that year of my life or what I was doing. But every album I've ever done, I go back and I can pick it apart, production wise, songwriting wise, and think of things I would have like to have made better or done different. But you can't make art that way. You'll stall yourself, you'll self-criticize yourself before you even get out of the gate. You have to just do it and let it go and let it be done. because every album that I do, I feel is better than the last. I feel that even though my most recent albums, like I started after having children, I started recording again in 2016. And I've made 7 albums with my new band since 2016. Speaking of which, I forgot to bring you guys a fan pack. It's sitting on my entranceway table. I'll get it.
Unacceptable.
I know. I'm like, I'm so dumb. I'm like, okay. I knew I'd forget something, but I think my more recent work is far superior to my hit albums. So there you go. I think when you are a writer or an artist, it's not something that it's not anything that you approach from a business standpoint. It is like I do it because I'm compelled to do it. I can't not do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It totally does. So it totally makes sense. So now I'm going to ask you, why is it so difficult for Canadian artists to break into the U.S. market?
Oh God, that is
because it's really
that's an extremely loaded question, and
you can give us an extremely loaded answer. Well, be honest.
It's interesting that you're talking about this because I'm just writing this chapter in my book about what happened to me.
Well, you come back on when you write your book and you release your book. You promise?
100%.
Okay.
So, and I don't want to give away.
No,
I want people to have a reason to read the book, right? But a large part of the problem for Canadian artists is the fact that, you know why it worked so well for Alanis? Because she went to LA, she wrote with a co-writer in LA, Glenn Ballard, and she got signed out of America. She got her record deal in America, and she was living in America when that happened. It made all the difference in the world. If you, say, got in the 80s especially, or even early 90s, if you were signed to, say, Warner Canada, and they were like, this album is diamond in Canada, you know, the American Warner would go, well, yeah, but, you know, it's Canada-centric. It's not. We didn't sign it. You got to remember, in the 80s, all of these A&R guys, you know what A&R is? Yeah. Had tremendous, not only power, but egos. If they didn't sign it, if it wasn't their discovery, if it wasn't everybody coming into the office going, good job on the Aerosmith album, John, you know, a lot of them weren't interested. They weren't interested in trying to break, even if it was doing gangbusters in Canada, trying to now work it in the States. It wasn't their discovery. And so that was a huge amount of the problem. Or my situation, which there's a whole other big backstory behind why this transpired in my career. I ended up signing with Attic Records, which was, you know, they did a great job for what they did. I don't have anything negative to say about that label. They were lovely people. Almer was a great label head. They were the largest independent record label in Canada. They were eventually distributed by A&M. I had great distribution in Canada. And the A&M team worked really closely with Attic on their big selling artists, and I was one of them. But Attic Records, the way my contract was structured, they owned my foreign licensing rights. Basically, they owned my master. So if I did a great record, like, say, Body Rock, I couldn't just go shop that album in America, independent of Attic, and go get a deal.
They owned it.
They owned it. And a lot of the times when they were trying to get a deal for, when we were pushing the label going, this album needs to come out in America. My manager was just hammering them. This album has to come out in America. They were trying to get a label deal for Attic Records in America. Like, they didn't want to just let Lee Aaron go sign to EMI or Epic or whomever. They wanted to get a deal where Attic Records' whole catalog would be released in America. So there's a lot of complicated behind the scenes business nuances that are going on for a lot of these bands that people don't know or understand. And it was sort of the curse of being Canadian for a lot of us. And the contracts we signed, all of those 80s record contracts were horrible. I can explain it to you if you're interested in the business side.
Well, explain. Go ahead.
There's this great, it's a little like YouTube clip of Jared Leto, the actor, explaining how record contracts work. And it's pretty accurate. So here's the deal. The label, you sign a label deal and they're like, yeah, we're going to give you $250,000 to do your album. And you're like, great. But the deal that you have with them is that when it starts selling, they get 85% of the gross. So say your album sells for $20 and the label's taking 85% of that, and say you sell, I don't know, you do the math.
Yeah.
Okay. So they get their 85. So say you sell 100,000 albums and they take their
85%.
Their 85% of
whatever that is. Yeah.
The remaining 15% is what they charge you back the $250,000 out of that they were giving you for an advance. And then of the remainder, you're recouping to them. It was like this weird structure where you
could end up owing them money.
Correct. Then, your video gets taken off that, the marketing costs get taken off that, the tour support gets taken off your end of it, your 15%. And yeah. And so
I could see
almost every album I ever did, I ended up owing them almost $250,000 back. But
holy shit.
They've long since made back their money.
Uh-huh.
I actually didn't wake up to this fact because I signed my first record contract when I was, Freedom Records, I signed it when I was 19. Attic, I think I was almost 20. I was 21. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And it was about 3 or 4 albums in. I was kind of looking at my statements going, I owe them like $500,000. How come they're just dying to make another record with me?
Uh-huh.
What's after this many albums? Why are they still dying to make another album with me and reinvest in me? And that's when I actually started really pulling apart my contract and going, wait a minute, I see how this works now. Yeah. So but it wasn't just me. It was every artist.
Every artist
who signed contracts like that. Yeah.
And then you get, that it makes a lot of sense. Your explanation on the on the first of all, why it's so difficult for Canadian artists to make it in the U.S. And then secondly, how it's extremely, that's a good segue into getting into today into a discussion today about how difficult it is you have a legacy. You go back to the 80s, okay? And to be a new artist and come up and get the type of recognition, and because I have a background in my background's in the newspaper business, we have a legacy. Nowadays, there's so much music out there. I wouldn't even begin to imagine how difficult it would be to be starting from square one to try it. Now anybody can do, the internet's flattened everything out, but at the same time, that means how do you make money doing what you do? How do you get, and I'm not even going to say airplay because radio, we haven't even talked about radio.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
anymore.
that's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But in the 80s, it did.
In my era, it did.
Oh, it
for
sure as hell did.
Yeah.
You betcha. Because you got, if it's not on the radio, how are people going to find out about you, really? Or it's not being written out in a magazine or whatever it is. Now that's all flattened out.
Mhm.
But at the same time, as it flattens out, like how do you make, like, how many times does your song have to be listened to on Spotify for you to earn $5 kind of thing? That's where I'm going. That's where I'm getting to.
Yeah.
So it's, and I know you got a tour, and I know you're fortunate that you're still playing gigs,
Mhm.
which is cool. Like, but
I had fun.
exactly,
Yeah.
it is, and and from what I've read is that you've become quite the businesswoman.
Well, I learned the hard way. Like I don't make any claims that I graduated from school being a business girl, because I didn't, right? And
But you learned.
I did, and I've also gone back and done a lot more post-secondary, not necessarily in business, but a lot of my lessons, were just life lessons. A lot of them were just doing things the wrong way, and so, what exactly is your question?
Well, no. I'm saying is that if you were starting out now, how difficult it would be to get that type of, to get some momentum. And I use this example, and I had this discussion with your husband,
Okay.
and talking about, we've gone to the Newport Jazz Festival and the Newport Folk Festival a number of times, and you see performers that blow your mind, and they're living in a van, driving up and down the East Coast of the United States.
Yeah.
Just happy to have a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Coke. And you go, holy shit. Like, I've never heard of this guy or this gal. I've never heard of, and they're phenomenal.
Mhm.
And that's their reality. Is that how would, as starting out, how would you get momentum? That's the
Nowadays?
nowadays. And that's the question. That's what I'm.
You're probably asking me a question I can't fully answer. It is hard.
What do you think? Like, what's your opinion? Like, because and not only that, there's AI. There's all sorts of things that are, I was watching. I watched the oddest things. I watched 60 Minutes Australia.
Mhm.
And they had
That's not odd. Sounds like something I'd watch. Yeah.
and they had an artist that her music was being ripped off, and she's a big, I can't remember her name, but she's a big artist in Australia. I think she's in her, she said her career's like, she started when she was 10 years old.
Courtney Barnett? No.
Might be it.
Courtney, I think she's Australian. She's amazing.
Yeah, and her music's being ripped off now,
Oh,
and like through AI and like literally being ripped off, and it was. I'm going, okay, so now you got that to deal with. Your music's being stolen from you, literally being ripped off. Now, if you're just starting out, like. Not an answer, an opinion of what you could possibly do as a budding singer songwriter. Like, where would you start?
Oh boy. Yeah. The funny thing is, a couple of years ago, before the explosion of AI and AI technology, I probably would have said to you, not only, everyone has to put in their 10,000 hours, right?
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
whole, in terms of becoming good at your craft, you need to get good at songwriting. You need to put in the time, practice, it's not about just like waiting till inspiration hits. You need to work at it.
Mhm.
You need to work at it all the time. Know your instrument, know your craft, work on writing songs, learn recording technology. Like that's one of the things that I've done in the last few years of my life is I learned Pro Tools in the early 2000s, and now I'm working in Apple Logic, so that I can, if I get an idea, I can go over to my computer and I can actually program up a drum beat and I can put it down and create my own music. I've produced my last 7 albums myself with, obviously I hire a good team, I'll hire a good engineer and a good mixer, but, I know what I want to hear. But so you know what? I actually don't have a complete answer for your question because
but would you
the world is changing a lot right now, and I have to tell you, like I feel somewhat disenfranchised sometimes when I'm scrolling through social media and I'm just going, I'm just going to post an old picture or I'm going to post a snippet of this new song, that from our new album because I've done a little, and it's like you have to almost be an outrageous digital creator these days to get people's attention. And we're entering into this time in our life and in the world where with social media and with AI, it's a battle for people's attention. How do you get them to spend more than 3 seconds looking at something that you've done?
There you go.
That's interesting. And it's a challenge. I don't have the answer to that question. Honestly, like I'm a little bit of a private person and when I post things on social media, it's only the window of the world my private life or my world that I'm willing to let people into. Because honestly, like what I had for breakfast is not that interesting. I had avocado toast. Like
we actually,
not that interesting.
But we actually had that. You remember when we were talking in the coffee when we met prior, and we're having a discussion, and I didn't tell you this. There was a woman behind us, and I thought she was actually recording our conversation, and I was staring at her. I didn't tell you this.
Oh,
okay. But then she laughed after it because I was just going, you were talking and she laughed. Then we started the discussion about Fluffy.
Yeah.
And the guy behind us
piped in.
Now, I didn't think I was talking that loud. I didn't realize, you don't know how loud, and then he joins the conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm going, holy shit. Like, that goes back to you want to maintain your own private life. Like you want to have a conversation, like how much do you want out there kind of thing. And I'm the same way to a large extent up until doing this thing here. I was a digital ghost. I'm not, I don't want, I'm not, I kind of am that guy now.
Well, the sad thing for artists is I'm constantly having this conversation with my manager and I go, and he's like, oh, I really think this song is going to, and I said, but yeah, it's a great album. But you know what? Having a great album is it's not enough anymore. I need some, you need to like create some kind of like controversy or some kind of crazy thing that like, do I go out there and I say something really inflammatory and controversial just to get some press attention?
Yeah.
That's not my personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like honestly, I don't have all the answers. The nice thing for me being somewhat of a legacy artist, my fan base seriously is between 45 and 65 or 45 and 70.
Yeah.
They still like to buy digital or not only digital product, but they still like to buy physical product is my point. If I put out an album, they have a turntable. They own one. Wow, what a concept, like they buy CDs. So my career right now at this juncture can still continue because I'm going to continue making quality music and my fan base is going to continue to buy the albums I put out. So I'm able to continue, even if my Spotify numbers are not through the stratosphere. My fan base doesn't like necessarily consuming music in a streaming way, because the quality, the bandwidth of EQ and all
there's so much
that you can hear, they're just not there.
Yeah,
and
I'm like I don't have terrestrial radio. I don't listen to, but I occasionally I just whenever I get a new vehicle, Sirius XM comes on.
Yeah.
You get it for free for a while, and I end up listening to the same stations, the same three or whatever, alternate between them, and then when that runs out, I go back to, I was originally a Deezer guy. That's the app I used, but now I'm on Spotify, and I hit DJ, and then it's like my eclectic collection of music. You might have some Vivaldi mixed in there with some Red Hot Chili Peppers or whatever kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Favorite band.
Exactly. But the thing is that I with that, there's no exposure to anything else. So that goes back to the thing about how do you get and your legacy, but back to like how in the hell would and you say you do something inflammatory or whatever the hell it is to get attention to what you're doing. Well, you're not going to do that. I know that. I know you well, and we don't know each other real well, but I think I know you well enough that you're not that kind of person. You're not going to do that. But back to someone or a group or an act trying to make it, I would almost, is there even a bar circuit that you can go and play anymore?
No, that doesn't
that don't take it.
The world of touring has kind of gone from, there used to be a 6-night-a-week circuit. That by the mid to late 80s, that had turned into a 3 nights, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday circuit, which eventually turned into, Friday one gig, when I would stay local in 89, 90, it would be like, well, Friday night, we've got you at this big nightclub in Thorold, and on Saturday, you're going to Kitchener. It was like a Friday or a Saturday. And that has kind of, you could still, go on a tour where you'd mostly they would be consolidated into the end of the week, right? Like in the 90s and stuff. But that's kind of the way it's gone for me now is I pretty much do like weekend warrior work. I do fly in, fly out. So like September's kind of quiet. October, I'm busy every weekend. I'm flying to Winnipeg. I'm flying up to Regina. I'm flying to Regina. I'm going up to Fort St. John, so it's kind of come down. My agent always says fairs, festivals, and casinos. That's kind of the circuit in Canada that we're all on now.
And is that circuit?
But you have to be a legacy artist
that's to play it. This
is the thing.
That was my next point.
If you were a young fledgling band, now I have a guitar player friend. Given a plug for their band on the show.
Go ahead.
He's in it. His name is Daniel Svensson, and he is one of my subs when my guitar player, the rare time he cannot do one of my shows, he has a band that he started called Brass Camel. They're like, and they're actually starting to get some traction. But you know what? They have done it the old-fashioned grassroots way. They do have a decent social media presence, and he spends a lot of time putting together little videos of them in the studio and the band and little funny things that happen. Like he's actually quite good at social media. But they have gone out across Canada 2 or 3 times now, playing like places that are kind of like the Rickshaw in Vancouver. Across like a modicum size bar, maybe 200 to 300 seats across Canada. As long as they've got like enough for food and gas money to get themselves where they're going in their little, I think they refurbish like a school bus or something.
Just grinding it out.
Like they're grinding it out.
Grinding out.
But 100% old-fashioned grassroots, doing it that way. They're on their third album now. And but the reason they're amassing somewhat of a following is they are doing 100% prog. It is like Rush meets Genesis meets Yes on steroids, kind of. It's kind of a niche market. But they're pounding the pavement, doing it the old-fashioned hard way. And and I was talking to him, and he said it's been hard just to get players to be invested, to stick around, because it's my buddy's vision, the whole band, and he writes the material, right? So
because I look, I'm as a a child of the 80s, so to speak. That's I graduated from high school in 1983 and went straight to the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, and in Winnipeg there was a huge bar circuit. Like you could every night, every weekend, we'd go to the zoo. There was a place called the Highlander. There's the Norlander.
There too.
Yeah. And it was every. And I remember coming at the tail end in the early 90s, coming out here to Vancouver, because I moved from Winnipeg to Nelson in the West Kootenays. The Nelson Daily News was my first actual management gig in the daily newspaper business.
Cool.
Moving from Winnipeg to Nelson was wild because I had mountains all around me. I had, wow, this is wild. And I remember coming and seeing my friends here in Vancouver, and there was a live band scene still. Like you could still go to different bars and see live bands, but that doesn't exist anymore. They're far and few between. So even if you wanted to grind it out, there's not a lot of, I would imagine. Now, I would imagine it's the same thing. You could say the same thing in the U.S. too. It's a worldwide phenomenon. This thing about how do you get your name out? How do you how would you do it? And you've got to.
Now there are still a very small little handful of labels that exist. And if you do manage to get connected to a label, mind you, they do these things called 360 deals now, which are you
What does that
familiar?
mean?
Well, back when I was young, you would sign to a label, they would take, record profits, they would take usually either all your or a portion thereof of your publishing. And you're, for the most, usually a portion of your songwriting, but you'd still retain some publishing and songwriting. Nowadays, a 360, and they didn't touch your merch was like a whole separate thing. Nowadays, the label wants to own basically your branding, your
everything,
merchandise, part of your touring. They take a part of your touring money. So when my record label took zero from my touring, my agent and manager took a slice off the top. But now the labels want part of your touring. They want part of your merchandise is huge. You can go to a Beyonce show and buy like a, her partnership with Dolce & Gabbana, and she's got or whatever it is, Valencia, and she's got a hoodie that's $900. It's ridiculous. Like,
so is the labels getting
360 just means they take a piece of like everything. They have their hand in everything. I don't have my business structured like that at all.
Well,
nowadays,
you virtually impossible to exist with it unless you're massive.
Well, and then there's a real agenda to keep you working, right? Because everybody's making money. I experienced that at someone in the 80s too, when my management, there was a lot of money coming into my agent, into my manager, and we were selling records. So everybody's like, keep the artist working, right? And you've got to, like, I had a truck, like a big a tour bus, a gear truck on the road. I had drivers and crew and all these people I was paying, right? So,
but now when you go and you're not, when you're traveling, like for instance, if you're going to Winnipeg or wherever you're going, you're when you fly there, I would presume
fly in, fly out.
And all you're bringing your instruments.
Bring a guitar on the airplane, and then everything is provided. You have a backline rider that you give them in advance, and you walk up and your amps
plug in, and
everything is there. Yeah.
That's quite
it's a lot easier.
A lot easier. And now, so to be a young band like your friend, give your friend the band that you're
Brass Camel.
Okay, give them a plug. Yeah. Okay, when they tour, they're carrying their own stuff.
They're hauling up.
They're hauling their own shit.
Probably not PA, but they are hauling all of their amps and their instruments, and they are prog, so probably a gong or two.
Yeah.
A theremin, some tubular bells or something. I don't know.
So
got a bunch of junk with them.
Yeah. So like that's the music business, I find, because I don't know a lot about it. I really don't. And until I actually, John's book, about Mark Bowman, and opened my eyes up to a lot of it, and going, holy shit, like it was really interesting. It was a real interesting read for a guy like me, going, Jesus, like, okay, you sign a deal, you don't know what you're signing when you're young. And now, like I wouldn't know, like I really think about this, but it's not just for music. It's to be an actor or an actress or whatever. How do you get out there? How do you, and you got to work every channel. You got to work every gear that you possibly can in order to get some notoriety, or to say, hey, look at me, or listen to me, because there's so much out there.
Well, and you have to be a social media star, kind of at the same time, be a social media creator.
And for somebody to spend more than, and I'm guilty of it too. Like how many times you start watching something on Netflix or whatever, and you're like, you might be 5 minutes into it and you go, I'm not watching this, kind of thing. We have the attention span of a fly.
Yeah, totally.
Flea. That's right. A flea. And so the legacies, and I could speak specifically about the newspaper business too. We're a legacy business. And I find it very interesting that for something that doesn't matter, people certainly have no problem suing us all the time. I always say that, they don't care. We don't know who reads the newspaper, but as soon as we put something in there that they disagree, or whatever it is, they're, we're getting a letter. Oh yeah. Wow. And it's extremely, it's more so in the United States than it is in Canada.
Well, and the political climate that we are in right now, the politically correct climate with everyone is offended by everything.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you're getting sued left and right.
Oh yeah. There's and I don't, like, my own personally, I don't know how to, I've given up on political correctness. I really have, because I don't woefully go out and try and offend anybody. I really don't. But I don't even, there's a lot of times that I may say things that I think we were talking the other day, and how do you address a certain, an individual who's brown or whatever it might be, like, I don't know. I don't want to be offensive.
Right.
When even going to the bathroom, I've gone, I don't know what that means. Like, usually, like, I'm a traditional conservative guy who goes and looks at the bathroom and go, okay, am I going to the right bathroom? That's where we live now.
Well, I feel very blessed in that our children, we have two children, a girl and a boy. who actually identify as a girl and a boy. So, but but and they're 19 and 21 years old, and it's kind of nice because they've kind of grown up with not only the digital media and the social media, but they've grown up in the culture of all this, political correctness. Our daughter, her former roommate was transitioning to become a full-fledged woman, and lovely girl. I loved her. Like, she was so sweet. But so I feel like we are very privileged in that we're being able to be educated by our children right now. And when I question something, I always just sort of say, give your mom a break. Like, I didn't grow up with this stuff, and I'm just trying to, like, I think I was telling you the funny story that they had people coming for dinner, and they were addressing those individuals as a they, because that's like a thing. If you don't wish to be called either a man or a woman, you can be called a they. And I'm just like, I just need to know how many people are coming for dinner, how many plates to set. Like, I'm just like, I don't care how they like. And you know what? I have, throughout my entire career and in the arts and in my life and in the 90s, I had lots of gay friends. I had friends that I played for this big wedding where a very close friend of mine had left his wife because he fell in love with another man, and they were the most beautiful couple, and I played for their wedding. And I just, my whole attitude is, let your freak flag fly. Like, be who you are. I have no issue with any of that, but it's trying to keep up with the terminology keeps changing, and you might say the wrong word, and then somebody's mad at you. And I'm just like, I was saying to my kids, cut me some slack. When did that word change? I don't know. I'm okay with whatever
it is. I just want to know.
I'm cool. Your mom's cool. I just don't know the right word to use. Help me out here, right? And so the nice thing is, having young kids, they have been really good at educating us, right?
Well, and you have what did you say? They're 19
and 21
and 21.
Yeah.
So,
and our daughter is very immersed in the musical theater world. She just graduated from Capilano University. She's very much in that world of the arts, and she is working with just, at any given time, the most diverse group of people. And it's wonderful, right? It's great.
So, and you, that's the thing is that, like, I say about my own personal experience, I'm willing to be educated. I'm willing to, I am, but a lot of times I don't know. Like, I don't know. I have walked into the wrong bathroom, or hell, I've done that.
I'll tell you a little funny story. Years ago, my father was born in the island of Newfoundland, immigrated to the mainland when he was like 10 years old. And his funny story about walking into the bathroom is he thought it said laddies. So, but I'm not allowed to make a Newfie joke anymore.
Yeah.
Even though Newfies are the ones that make the most Newfie jokes.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway.
That's right. That's right. You know what they always say? I have been fortunate enough to go to Newfoundland. I've been to Newfoundland.
Oh, it's such a beautiful place.
It is. Yeah. And the big joke about Newfoundland when I went there was that they stopped making boats out of wood. Nobody ever told them, kind of thing. That was a Newfoundland slight.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was the big joke. And I didn't get that at the beginning when I was told that, and then, I remember I was on the plane going, oh yeah, okay, that's funny, I guess. But when my son was playing hockey, he was like 12 or 13 years old. He spent a year up in Kelowna, and his parents were both from Newfoundland. His father was a captain of BC Ferry, and he would always tell me sometimes when his mom and dad are talking, he couldn't even understand them. which is hilarious.
Well, my father has zero accent. He lost his accent many years ago. But yeah, it's kind of like it's like a bastardized Irish dialect.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it is. Yeah. And yeah, there are places where I can understand most Newfoundlanders because I kind of grew up with relatives around that. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
We segue into you were doing going to do it. You did a 23andMe or
you remember me telling you that? So yeah, I throughout the course of writing my book, my memoirs, I obviously delved a little bit into my family history and my childhood and stuff like that. And I grew up thinking my father's side of the family was pretty much exclusively Irish descendants, right? Because most of them are. However, it's come to light in the last probably 15 years. And because I'm almost ashamed, ashamed to say this, 30 years ago, my whole family felt almost ashamed or embarrassed to say that there was some Aboriginal or First Nations heritage in our family. And that's shameful for me to even admit that about my family. But because of that, nobody ever talked about it. And then about 15 years ago, there was someone in our family that did a deep dive and did this genealogy book and sent it. And I'm looking and I'm like, I have a great-great-grandmother that was like a Beothuk descendant. How is this possible? So on my father's side of the family, my grandfather's mother was, I don't know if you say Métis, but Métis on the island of Newfoundland. She was, so my great-great-grandmother on my father's side was, the family says they're almost 100% sure she was a Beothuk descendant because, again, what the people on the indigenous on the island of Newfoundland went through was nothing short of a genocide as well. It was awful what the European settlers did. They drove them inland from their food source, and a lot of them fled to the Red Indian Lake area where they hid. But the government declared them extinct in the mid-1800s because it was more convenient for the government to do that, right? So anyway, yeah, we, on my father's side, there is definitely some indigenous lineage that was buried in my family for many years. And I'm totally proud of that fact. And I would like to explore that. Nobody has much information about it. So for my birthday this past summer, I asked for a DNA kit because I want to see what's really going on. And also if there are distant relatives in my family that have done the same thing, I think it'd be interesting to be connected to them. And hopefully there's no crazy surprises for me because I think I was telling you the story. One of my very dear friends, her husband, whose mother and father were in their late 90s. I think her dad, either the mom or dad was 104 when they finally passed away. He did this Ancestry.ca kit. And after his mom and dad were both passed away, found out that his dad wasn't his dad. And her conversation to me was, his mom had every opportunity on her deathbed to tell him, your dad ain't your dad. Your dad's not your dad. And she just didn't. And he's in his 60s, and that was really a hard pill for him to swallow, and also just a mental mind twist, right? Of wow, now what? And so, but wouldn't you rather know than not? Wouldn't you rather know the truth? I don't know.
That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question because, I look at my own personal situation. I would rather not know. If that, no, I'm serious. I mean that because my he's passed away now. I believe he's my dad.
Yeah.
there's I think in every family there's I have a story on my father's when he was on his deathbed. He told me that there was this book existed, and it could be turned into a movie. It was about how his aunt came from the Ukraine to Canada,
Right.
and she went back to the Ukraine and brought her brothers back, like as a young woman, like and I didn't know this exist, and I read this. It was like a, it wasn't a, it was like a, I don't know what you would call it. To me, it read like a book, but it wasn't a book. It was like an ancestry kind of thing,
Okay.
tree, and it had pictures of my grandfather in it, and on my
Did you find
dad's side.
that fascinating?
I did,
though? Like
I did. I
find
blew
stuff
me
like that
away. Like
just
I was like,
wow.
I didn't know. Like great Auntie Pearl, she like ran a whorehouse in Winnipeg. That's seriously, like
Okay.
yeah, and
Wow.
like I'm reading this thing to my dad,
Yeah.
and that's why she brought. He said whenever she came up to the farm, she took whatever she wanted because she brought the brothers over,
Okay.
so they owed her. So she would come up there, and when Pearl would come up, she would take a chicken or whatever the hell she wanted.
Yeah.
But that blew me away, and I that part of me, that I find that interesting. I don't know how I would react if yeah, I don't know. I've never. So you haven't received the results yet, or you have received?
No, I have not.
So you're still waiting.
I'm still waiting. But another interesting thing is in my family, my father comes from a family of 11 children. And over the years, it's sort of become like no secret that the last two children weren't my grandfather's children. Like my father's youngest two siblings were the result of my grandmother's, after she divorced my grandfather, her next marriage. She ended up marrying the gentleman that we all believe is, anyway, it's a long story. Like it's like all the cousins like know the secret. And then I brought this up to my dad the other day. We were talking. Like this is just recent. It's funny how the older generation can be. My dad's almost 90. And I said to my dad, I said, so yeah, like regarding these two siblings, and it's kind of no secret. And he got really quiet. He goes, well, that's a story that someday when you're older, I'll tell you. I'm like, I'm a grown ass woman. Like, when are you thinking you're going to tell me this story, Dad? Like, but he still treats me like I'm 11. Right. And I'm like, it's not that big of a secret, but yeah, just it is, to me, it seemed, because I've done a lot of therapy in my life, and I've, done a lot of exploring, just becoming a better human and not repeating some of the same, bad patterns that maybe existed in my family lineage that, I wanted to rise above and heal from. But the older generation, they just seem kind of invested in keeping their secrets, which is, it's hard, right?
Yeah,
it's hard.
Like I look at the relationship that I have with my children and compare that to the relationship that I had with my parents. It's completely different. Your kids are, I'm constantly being taught by the kids, like, or learning. I'll say learning, but you have to be willing to learn, and having like I remember having this conversation with my son. My middle sister was out here, and I was telling him, there's nothing that you will do or think of doing that I haven't thought of doing or done myself. So it's in your best interest to tell me the truth. Okay. And she took that the opposite way that it was meant. It was meant that you can, we're not going to have a relationship where you're going to, like my mother used to have tell me everything and then beat the hell out of you if you told the truth. Well, I'm not going to do that again. That I'm an idiot if I'm not going to do that. And so the generation now, like with my children, with our children, and they're beyond the adults. They're, the youngest is 28 now, but we have a different relationship where I honestly, I believe it's more honest. Like we can be more honest with each other, which is better. There's still, yeah, even with my sister just being out here, I'll bring that up if she watches the podcast, and there's, she makes a comment that, like my mother's maiden name was Sawchuk, and Terry Sawchuk was a goaltender in the NHL, and he's a relation. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And my oldest sister was saying this. I think she's the only one in the family that didn't know it. And even my wife here knew that.
Yeah.
I'm like, Alison, how do you not know that? Everyone knew that. There's an arena in the north end of Winnipeg that's named after him. If you go in there, you can see all it. But she didn't know. And I go, well, okay, well, there's a little piece of history that, you were the only one in the family that didn't seem to know, or maybe it wasn't. I was shocked that she didn't know, but I haven't taken the. I don't know if I do that. The 23andMe thing. That's an interesting question.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Let's see. Yeah, you see what happens.
I'm like 99.9% sure my mom is my mom and my dad is my dad. But I'm kind of just curious to see, like, when I ask my father, like, where's your family name? Where is it from? Because his family name is actually English, but I've heard conflicting stories from other families. Oh, it was originally Swedish, or it was originally German. And I'm like, I just want to know. I'm just kind of curious, like, maybe.
Okay. We should wrap it up. I want to ask you one more. What's on your what are you listening to now? What's on your Spotify or whatever you're listening to? What are you listening to?
I have very, very eclectic tastes. So, one day it might be Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Okay.
And then the next day it might be the 9 Inch Nails,
Okay.
I just went to the 9 Inch Nails concert with my son a couple weeks ago. And then last night, John and I were listening to Wilco and the Velvet Underground. And I like, there's a band called Royal Blood. Do you know them? They're like very bluesy rock. I love Jack White.
Jack White.
Raconteurs. Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
Everything from edgy rock to
give your if anybody give your website. It's Lee Aaron.
www.leeaaron.com.
Okay, and check out where you're
Lee Aaron Music on Facebook and leeaaron.music.
Okay.
On Instagram, because someone else I had to put a dot in there. Isn't that terrible? What people do? They steal your domain names. Yeah.
I would like. I'd really like to thank you. I'd also like to give the Creative Lab, Edwin Perez, a plug here. Thank you so much for setting up this wonderful, and Tricia Snow with personalbrandpro.ai. And I would encourage anyone to, if they wanted to check out our website, which is Ship for Fools, our website, Ship for Fools, media and entertainment.ca, but also please subscribe on YouTube. Once again, you are a Canadian musical icon.
I felt like we didn't talk about music that much, but that's okay.
But that's cool, though. That's the thing. I told you it wasn't an interview; it was a conversation, and that's exactly what we did. So thank you so much, Lee. Thank you.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you. You may be asking yourself, what's any of this got to do with me? Absolutely nothing. Until next time.